Hello and welcome to TidyX episode 64. TidyX is a screencast where we go through and explain how our code works. My name is Ellis Hughes and you can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And my name is Patrick Ward. You can find me on Twitter at OSPPatrick, and you can find the screencast on Twitter at tidy_explained. You can also Gmail us at tidy.explained@gmail.com. You could hit us up on the GitHub repo and drop an issue in, or you could like and subscribe on the YouTube channel and place some comments down there, and we will be sure to acknowledge those and get back to you.
All right. Thank you. We have a lot of ways you can connect with us. We love hearing from y'all. We saw some comments last week or so. Really appreciate it. What are we doing this week, Patrick, as I start sharing the screen?
So we've done 1, 2, 3 weeks on regex expressions, and we're going to continue on from regex expressions into this idea of cleaning data. And we called this cleaning ugly data. This is episode 63, cleaning ugly data. And the ugly data looks like data that someone might see in a sports environment. Like, this is a pretty common way that strength coaches, sports medicine professionals would keep data. They have a tab that's assigned to a single athlete or individual. So you see that down there where the athlete's player IDs are. And then they have information about maybe the athlete's training. And up in the top corner is what I call the vitals. So that's the information about the player, like their name, their height, their body mass, their age, etc. And then they have some training info down there. And you could see between our two tabs, we have two different athletes who look to be probably doing two different types of training regimes. So one is doing some walking and weight training, and the other is doing some jogging and swimming. And the scheme of these files follows the same scheme. So the first 4 rows are devoted to the vitals. And then there's a skipped row 5. And then the activity tracking begins in row 6, where there's always this sort of merged columns across the top. And then there's this, like, the nested columns of the information we care about falls below the merger. And so what we want to do is, we've been called in to do some analysis on the training data of these athletes at TidyX University. And so what we want to do is we want to scrape this data out of the Excel sheet and clean it up and get it into a data frame format that can be analyzed with all the cool tidyverse stuff that we usually do.
Yep, and this will give us a crash course. We're going to spread this over 2 weeks. Patrick is going to go show his approach to doing this, and then next week I'm going to come in blind. I created this data set, but I did not write any code, and so next week we're going to go in and try to talk through the process as I approach it as well, because this is something I see all the time as well, working in the health environment as well.
So basically, what Ellis did was give the caveat that he's not responsible for any code errors this week. They're 100% on me. I did all of this, and this is 100% my work, unlike previous weeks or all the previous episodes where it's a combination of our work, so we can assume equal parts responsibility. This is totally on me. So let's go.
No.
Let's go.
All right. So
okay.
let's get going here. I think I can tell what's going on here. We're loading in libraries, tidyverse for our data manipulation needs, lubridate for date dealings, and a new one that I don't think we've actually used before, readxl.
Yeah, usually we're loading like CSV files, we've done RDAT files, text files, we've done some JSON files. We haven't done Excel files and we haven't done SQL files. Maybe we can do that in the future. I have some code we could do that for, and that would be kind of fun too. readxl is a handy little package. There's a few of them out there for loading Excel files, and they're super useful because, as you'll see in a second, you can specify the sheet that you want to pull the data from.
Yep. So we're going to call file choose to get the file that we want to be loading in. Okay, there we go. So we want to pick that ugly data, and this is just it was a GUI interaction, so we could pull out which file we wanted to be using. You, of course, could just hard code that or pass it or do whatever. All right, what's going on here?
Okay, so we're going to load the data in. So the first thing, I did this in 2 parts. Part one is I wanted to do each sheet one by one so that I could understand exactly what was going on. And this is usually how I do things. If you remember the episode where we did live coding of Ben Baldwin's data, we always start with like a small example to figure out what's going on, and then we wrap it all in a function. And so that's what we're going to do here. So the first thing I noticed was, remember, there was vitals in the first 4 rows, and then starting at row 6, there was a whole swath of training data. So I'm going to pull in the data in 2 fashions from each sheet. The first is going to be give me the exercise stuff, and that's what this is. So I'm using the read_Excel function. I'm passing it the Excel file. That's what I want to call. This is coming from sheet 1, and I want to skip the first 4 rows. So row 5 was that blank row, and then it was our training data. And read Excel is kind of cool because it allows us to specify the column types. And so I know from looking at that Excel sheet that in row 1 or in column 1 it was a date. The next column was it was actually that column I had a problem with. It was duration. I assigned it a text. We'll talk about that in a second. There was a numeric, there was another date, and then there was a numeric. So we're going to go ahead and run this. And you're going to see we're going to get a bunch of warnings because we're going to get kind of like this ugly data back. And so there we go. So we've got like a bunch of NAs. We clearly don't have column names. We have the merged information over the top. Then we have like in row 1, it actually starts with like some of the column names. So it's a total mess. We're going to fix that. The next piece of information I'm going to bring in is the actual vitals. So I just call the entire sheet 1 this time. And this is going to be everything as you saw it in the Excel sheet. And R tries to put it into this data frame. It force fits it. And that's really messy too, but I'm going to show you how I parse this out. We're going to do the exact same thing for sheet number 2 so that I can wrap my head around what's there. Perfect.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. Dat1. Do you want to walk through, do you want me to walk through Dat1 or do you want me to walk through the exercise piece and you walk through the vitals piece? How do you want to do it?
Let's do that.
Okay, so here we go, the exercise piece. So we're working with sheet 1 here. I'm going to take sheet 1, and the first thing I want to do is I want to rename my columns. So I know what they are explicitly by looking at the Excel sheet, and I'm going to first say, let's handle the jogging piece of this, because remember, there was those merged columns with the nesting. So underneath. So I'm going to say, give me column 1, call it date, give me column 2, call it duration, and give me column 3, call it distance. And then I want to select those columns explicitly. So that's going to remove that jogging over the top, that merged piece over the top. So now we're starting to look like something that's a little more palatable. Then we're going to clean a little bit more. So I'm going to add a column that tells me, hey, I want a column that specifies the exercise activity. So let's call it jogging. And in reality now, looking at this, I probably should have pulled that first from the top piece of that merged kind of column. But we'll set that aside for a second. Yeah, I could have probably pulled it from the top there. But I'm going to specify it explicitly for right now. I'm going to change my duration into an as numeric because you could see R thought it was a character. And I'm going to extract the date using the substring function, which we used a bunch in our regex expression series. And then I'm going to use this handy little function called relocate, because for this to make sense, I want the exercise name to be set up right before the date. So I want to know, like, okay, they did jogging on this date. And then the NA omit is going to get rid of any rows with NA, because remember, the data was paired up with swimming data. So there's some dates where the athlete jogged or swam and didn't jog, and vice versa. So I'm just going to get rid of the NAs, and now I have a column, or I have a data frame of all jogging data. And now I'm going to do the swimming data. So take the data set. This time I want columns 4 and 5. I'm going to call them date and duration. I'm going to select those columns explicitly. I'm going to create a new column called swimming. I'm going to substring out my dates. And then I'm going to relocate that exercise right to the front so it looks just like the jogging data set. And now I have a swimming data set. And when I bind them together for athlete 1 in sheet 1, I now have a cool little data frame of their exercises. And now all we really need is the vitals, and we're ready to go.
All right, so we're going to go through and pull those out. Let's take another quick look at what the vitals data set looks like, and it's got everything in there. So what we're going to do first is we're going to select 2. So that is going to select the second column here, which is this column here containing these information. And we also know the location of which things exist. We know the height, the weight, and the age. And so we're going to select 2. So that's column 2 again, slice 1. So that is going to be the first row of column 2. which is 187. But when you do this, this is going to preserve it as a tibble for us. And we don't really want it to be a tibble. We actually want it to be just a normal data set, or actually want it to just be a scalar vector. So what we're going to call is we're going to call unlist on it. And unlist turns data frames into breaks it down into their components. And so when we call unlist on a single scalar, it actually converts it just into a very basic character value. And so that's where we got our height. And we're going to apply the same situation here, except we're going to pull it from row 2, which is the weight. And what I found interesting about this one, so if you look at the Excel file here, the weight for Aaron Jacob, who is completely random, 100% made up. I did not even look at anything when I made these. To be clear, this isn't referencing anything. I put the weight is 75.6. But when it was read in, it was saved as 75.59999999994. And so that has to do with numerical precision and some weird bit stuff that's happening in the back end. So that's just, there's not much we can do about that as far as I'm aware. It's just, that's what it is now. And you could round it, I guess.
Yeah,
if you wanted to.
easy to convert to a numeric and round. We
Yeah.
could actually do it right there if you did round, or I think you have to go as numeric first, right?
Yeah, probably.
There, then round. And now
it's back to the correct value.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's not strictly necessary. And then age is pulling out that third row there. And to get name, so if you look at vitals, the way that it read it in is it read that first row as being column headers. And so we are able to go, we'll get us the column names, vitals 1, and the second entry there is the name of the player, Aaron Jacob. And now we're going to rep it several times. This way we're going to repeat it the number of rows inside of exercise 1.
And conceptually, that little code right there where we extracted the name, the call name's vital 1, as I was saying above, where I explicitly said jogging or swimming, I would have done, if I pull up, for example, if you pull up just dat1, the dat1 column, instead of typing jogging, I would have done it the same way. I would have said, give me column name 1, and then below I would have said, give me column name 3, and I would have gotten back. So that would have solved the problem, right? Because as we saw in the other tab, the athlete did jogging, and then they did weight training. And it's entirely possible that if we had tab 3, especially if we were, let's say, working with a little university in town called University of Washington, it might say weight training and rowing, which is a big sport there. So there could be very different activities, and that would be the way that you would pre-specify that, is you would take the merged column and just plop it in.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, we're going to leave it as is just because it works. But yeah, that's a way you could have done it. And so yeah, we're going to repeat these so that we end up with a data frame that, let's not delete it, has the same number of rows as exercise 1, right? So they have the same number of rows, which means that we can just call a bind calls on it and come back together. So there we go, athlete 1, processed and ready for analysis.
Yep.
All right, now we're going to do it for the second column, and I think this is basically the same, isn't it?
The only difference is that the only difference is that they did weight training instead of swimming, despite me calling it swim too. Which, again, you take no responsibility for the coding here. Listen, it doesn't matter. Once you get down to this data frame athlete 2, we've got everything where it needs to be. There we go.
And that's what matters.
That's what matters. So now that we kind of have a system of doing this, let's wrap it in a function. Oh.
Did I not complete this? Is that done? Because we converted the weight into the weight. That's my bad. That's
See?
Man, I messed up your code.
You messed up my code after
shouldn't let me. You shouldn't let me add any code.
Yeah. See, there we go. Okay, now.
What? What's going on here?
Did you? Okay. What? Maybe rewrap it. Yeah. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. What's that? What happened here?
Oh, What? Why it can't recycle? What?
Hmm.
Oh,
Oh,
that's whoa. Okay.
oh, because you keep binding columns, I think. Just, I think if you rerun.
Ba ba ba
Maybe,
ba
yeah.
ba ba. We're good.
Okay, that's
Ba
good.
ba ba ba. That should be good.
Okay,
That's
there
good.
we go.
Okay.
Okay, now we're good.
That's
Now,
I messed up your stuff,
hey,
man.
there we go.
That's
There
my
we
bad.
go. Cool. Now
Alrighty.
we've got the data in analysis form. The only thing that I don't like about this before I go to the function is that duration column. So where is our duration? If we look at the data duration, yeah, R pulled the durations in a weird way. Like, what is that? Jogging on 10.5, or sorry, yeah, on 10.1 was 0.045. What was it in the Excel sheet? Did it say?
It was for that 105.
Okay, so
One
it's
one colon oh 05. And so when I was
yeah.
making this, I was explicitly trying to be like an intern or somebody like that. I was just kind of entering stuff in and not looking at what Excel was doing.
That's how you get fired as an intern. That's
Well, good thing I'm no longer an intern. uh, so yeah, I think there's a couple ways you could handle that. So
But we can handle it next week when you do
yeah,
it.
okay.
Yeah. I didn't have a good solution. I was kind of searching around and then I ran out of time.
But I mean, you can tell. The nice thing is you can tell that they're on different scales of time.
Yes. Yes, that's
So
right.
like this is a very different scale of time than this. So somebody just didn't log. Okay, the units for this one are. I think when I was writing this, I meant it to be hour colon minutes.
Got it. Now, and
In
then
this,
October 10th, hold on, scroll the Excel sheet over a little bit so we could see the data underneath it. I'm curious about October 10th. It's eliminated. It's eliminated because there was no duration input and the data was cleaned as an NA omit.
mm-hmm.
So that's another thing that has to be handled in a different way.
Yep, that can be dealt with. Or
Yep.
no, here it
Yep.
helps if we
I
yeah
just
got
noted.
it.
I just noticed that. Yep. There it is.
Alrighty, there we go. So these are things that I'll make sure to keep track of, or I'm sure Patrick will call me on that next week.
Yeah, yeah.
If I
But
don't.
this is all part of the data cleaning process. Is you do something, you quality control it. Quality assurance is like one of the most important things in data cleaning. Like, does this look right? Does it make sense? Are we sure that we're
Com-
looking at the right things?
Compare the
Comparing.
values, make sure that they haven't
Exactly.
changed or don't haven't changed in a way you don't expect them to.
And so these are all things that you would want to do in when you're cleaning data. So we like Ellis said, we simulated this data real quick, and then he sent it through, and I just kind of spent a little time looking at it and saying like, okay, I'm gonna write some stuff, and that's what we wrote. So we're kind of quality controlling it live. So we have the data. We know there's some issues, but let's move on to the function and we'll fix those issues in a second. So the function is going to work like this. We know how to now extract all the data from the data sheets. We're going to assign the number of sheets. And so in our example here, we only have two. This could be up to, this could be 200. It could be 2,000. It doesn't matter. We're going to create a blank data frame to store the values. So here, it's just a data frame with the column names that we know are going to explicitly be there, because that's how we made the data parsing work. And we're just going to give them the actual types of the variables that are there. So the characters, numeric, etc. So that's really all we need to get this for loop functioning is basically those two elements. The for loop is just basically I took the data above and pasted it in, and I said, hey, for I in 1 to n number of sheets, just keep running through this loop until you finish, right? So if there was 200 sheets, it'd go sheets 1 to 200. Here it's going to go 1 to 2. So we're going to do all the same things. We basically set there, we create a data frame reading in the data. We I called it athlete ID rather than vitals, so I could get the information and call it vitals later on. The jogging and the swimming, again, it's not swimming, it was weightlifting. But we know how to handle that with, there's one way that we could handle it. We could handle it with the call names that we discussed above. So we basically extract the training data for each sheet. Then we bind that together. Then we extract the vitals. There you go. And it's training dat 1 and then training dat 3.
4.
Or 4.
It'll be 4.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Okay, and then we bind those together and we have exercise data, and then we're going to grab the vitals. So all the same steps are there. And then we're going to bind this all together into that empty total data frame that we created above. So we run this for loop, which is going to be very fast with only 2 sheets. We get a bunch of errors barking out at us because there's all those empty column names due to the nesting of the data and the merging. But we get returned our cool, handy data frame in a way that it can start to be analyzed and graphed and plotted and charted and all that cool stuff. And that was my approach to cleaning the ugly data. And next week, Ellis will have his approach, which will probably be much more elegant than my hackery, my tomfoolery.
I just thought it would be fun for us to discuss both having something that was already done and then explain the thought process as we go through it.
Yeah.
And this is just kind of how it shook out. I didn't have much time this week, and Patrick did to put this together. So I think with that, we were actually done with this week's episode. Thank you all so much for joining us again as we work through data cleaning. And this is reading data from Excel that are quite ugly. As always, my name is Ellis Hughes. You can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And my name is Patrick Ward. You can find me on Twitter at OSPPatrick. And if you want to get in touch with us, perhaps send us examples of some of your ugly data. We could do that. We did that with the Ben Baldwin data. We're doing it here. So if you have some examples of data, you could maybe send us examples or thoughts. You can do that at tidy.explained@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at tidy_explained. TidyX_explained.
Yep.
You can open an issue on the GitHub, open an issue on the GitHub repo. You can comment on the YouTube channel and drop us info there if you'd like. Either way, lots of ways to get in touch with us if you have ideas of ugly data that you're kind of stumped on. Maybe we'll be stumped too, but we get to learn together, and
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
There you go.
And with that, thank you all so much, and keep on exploring your world.